Hello and welcome to Popmosis Film, the film podcast, or a film podcast, but a special film podcast because this is the one that features my awesome, very good friends, Tyler and Paul. So how are you guys?
Pretty good. Not too shabby.
Yeah.
Not too shabby. How are you doing, Tyler?
It's good. It's good. You know, we had a heat stroke and out here in California.
A heat stroke?
Oh my
Heat
god,
stroke.
are
Is
you
that
okay?
when you pass out from the heat? Just a heat wave, right?
Wait, heat wave.
Heat stroke is like a serious
yeah.
thing.
I was concerned. I was like, let's stop recording and deal with that right now.
Oh no. Words.
This is supposed to be like a
Heat
breezy, light episode.
Yeah, this is supposed to be the fun one.
I missed the cold already.
Josie and the heat
anyway,
stroke.
It's very hot here.
Josie and the heat strokes.
There you go.
So that gets to our movie. So I have a question for you guys, and it relates, at least for me personally. What is the first comic book that you each read? What's the first comic book? We'll start with you, Paul, since you're the oldest, actually, but just a little bit older than me. So go ahead, Paul.
The first one, Batman. But I was aware of the Archie comics, and they were in that Reader's Digest binding, and I was like, what is that? But yeah, basically Batman was my first comic book.
And Tyler?
I think it's actually some of the old Walt Disney ones that my mom used to read me. My mom had old Walt Disney comics from the 60s, 70s.
Oh, that's cool.
They're completely torn up and worthless now. But yeah, I would read them. And then after that, I think it was absolutely Batman and Daredevil, I think, were the two that my mom picked up for me at the store. And then Thor.
Oh, cool. Jump to Marvel there with little Thor love. So for me, the first comic of significance was G.I. Joe, but the first comic books that I ever read were Archie comics. And it's as Paul said, the reason that I read them is I'd be in the grocery store out with my mom. And my mom would always let us buy a candy bar, one candy bar when we went to the store with her. And that was our special thing. So I would negotiate. Maybe I'd get her to buy me an action figure, you see the Toy Biz action figure up here. If I didn't buy candy bars for 4 or 5 visits, then I could get a G.I. Joe, a Toy Biz Marvel figure. That I would negotiate with my mom in this way. And I did the same.
I was way too impulsive when I was a kid. I was like, nothing could be better than a candy bar right now. Nothing.
I'm not much of a sweet tooth. I'll eat anything
Me neither.
else.
That's the sad part.
Oh wow!
When I hear you can get this now, that was the magic word. I was like, now I like now.
Well, to be fair, I was getting the toy on day one. It would just be giving up candy bars for the next 5 visits.
Yeah.
So, but one of those things that I negotiated with, as I have a crink in my neck here from sleeping on the floor with my oldest daughter, the Archie comics, as Paul said, they were in that little Reader's Digest type of book, and they would be in the supermarket check aisle. The supermarket I went to was called Bilo, and they had their a comic book news rack in sort of the magazine section, but you could get Archie comics as you exited the check stand section. So that was even more tempting. And again, so it's a candy bar, this comic book that I have right now. Sure, I'm giving up future candy bars, but it was worth it for the comic book. And that just is our connection to Josie and the Pussycats. I don't remember anything about Archie comics though, because it was very quickly that I was not I was over this stuff, and G.I. Joe, G.I. Joe was the first comic book. I'm I know G.I. Joe, I know the toys, I know the cartoon, and now they have a comic book, at least in my mind. So I was moved on quickly, but it was significant because it was a first in my world. So
the funny thing is I never read the comic at all. I never read them, but I know the art style. I know the characters like Jughead and Archie and Betty and Veronica, but I've never read it in the comics. But it's somehow stuck there in my head.
Yeah, so same here. So Josie and the Pussycats was originally created by Dan DeCarlo, first appeared in Archie Comics in 1962, and then December of 62, and then in February of 63 got its own comic, which ran until 1982, so the year I was born, interestingly enough. And then there's different times. There was a new comic in 93, and then one in 2017, but ironically not in 2001 when this movie came out, so that's that. But it was constantly in reprints. But there was also, maybe even more famously, a cartoon in 1970 to 71, and then a sequel cartoon, which was Josie and the Pussycats in Outer Space.
Yes. I loved that one.
What the fuck?
And those cartoons are so good. So if you haven't seen the cartoons, have you guys seen the cartoons?
Oh,
obviously
God,
Tyler
yes.
has.
I watched one
That's
episode.
the only reason why I know him.
I watched the first episode, and there's like Captain Nemo, and he's like attacking their ship. I'm like, what the fuck is this? What am I watching? But it was, endearing for its time.
Yeah, it was great. It was like a Scooby-Doo cartoon, but with a girl band.
Absolutely.
I mean, it was very... Like, they had a van, the archetypes, one of the voices, I think, was the same voice that did Shaq. It was all the same animators and all that stuff. Yeah, it was just... But it was great and solid music. So, the feature film was released on April 11th, 2001. It was written and directed by Deborah Kaplan and Harry Elfront. I'm just trying to say that. Who also directed Can't Hardly Wait, which was like a big teen movie from a few years before that I despised at the time, but was like really big when I was in high school. That's when Paul and I were in high school at that time, and that was a big movie for high school kids. I hated it though. They also wrote Surviving Christmas, which was Tyler's almost, it was in the final three for our Christmas tournament, which lost to Paul's Scrooged, but I just thought that was funny. I'm like, oh, these guys wrote that movie. It stars Rachel Lee Cook.
Yeah.
Yeah, so blame you, Tyler, I guess. We are watching this because of Tyler. Rosario Dawson, Tara
Oh,
Reid.
absolutely. I would never pick this movie.
Budget of $39 million, and it only made $14 million. So there you go. It lost a lot of money. One interesting note on the production as well, it was actually listed as a Riverdale production. So it made me wonder, did they have a bigger ambition for the Archieverse in the early 2000s? I don't know.
I have no idea.
But just the fact that it was... Go ahead, Paul.
I mean, it seems like they would have tied in something. Like they would have promoted it in the Archie comics. They would have done something to kind of tie to everything in order to promote the movie better. But I feel like they didn't even do that. It's really bizarre, this movie. Like, who's the audience for this movie, and why did they release
Paul,
it?
That was the first thing I wrote down after I was... And that was like 5 minutes in. I'm like, who is this movie for? Go ahead, but continue, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out, like, who's this movie for? It's like, it's too intelligent and satirical for the teeny bopper kids of the age that would really appreciate, like, TRL and Carson Daly, and it's too dumb for the people that were into, like, Scream and self-referential humor, Kevin Smith, things like that. So it's like, it's a movie for not really anybody at the time. And so I was wondering how this, like, came out. It's really bizarre. So I just it's like, it's befuddling to me, like, why this movie came out and what's the deal with this movie. So I thought we could figure that out. Maybe that's a mystery for this podcast to solve.
This podcast is a little different. We're actually here to solve the mystery of who is this movie for. So.
Yeah, and I can't imagine, like, a fan of, like, the Hanna-Barbera cartoon would like gravitate towards this movie. It's just really bizarre. But I really am wondering, like, how is it that Tyler? Why did you pick this movie? And, like, how did you find out about it? Because it's like, this movie, like, would never, hit my radar, never. And I love cult films.
So I found this movie because of my sister and I are 16 months apart. So we were very close. So a lot of the times when we would rent stuff, it would be for, like, both of us. And so it was like either this or Spice World, and we would watch both of these movies a lot. Actually, I'm sorry, I take that back. Sorry, but like my sister would want to watch the same thing over and over again. I would like to watch the same thing over and over again. I hated Spice World. She loved Spice World, and then. If I remember correctly, it was like one of those moments where it was just like where my sister was actually being a decent human being. It was like, hey, I will let you. How about we rent this one instead, this other movie instead, so you don't have to watch Spice World again. And I was like, anything with Spice World, I don't care. And also, I had the biggest crush on Jennifer Jason Leigh from Tom and Huck. So I was just like, oh, my queen, yes. And also, I love the Josie and the Pussycats animated show. So. I was like, yeah, I was down. And so we watched it. She hated it. I loved this movie. And I still love this movie.
So
I love how self-aware it is.
This movie is for Tyler.
For just
me.
Tyler specifically. You know, the funny thing you mentioned about Spice World is that my sister also made me watch Spice World, but she had the decency not to make me watch this movie, so I'll just have to say that.
You guys are making me glad I only have brothers. I didn't have to watch Spice World. I've actually seen Spice World.
You dodged a bullet, man.
I saw Spice World, though. I did see Spice World.
Yes. Oh, yeah?
Spice World
That's how big that Spice Girls were, though, that I just was curious to watch it. I'll say that. And it was terrible and unbelievably bad. But this movie, I think it's kind of funny. We've been texting back and forth. We have a joke, save it for the podcast where we don't want to give too much away because we want real reactions here. And we were joking, Tyler was sharing his love and Paul was expressing his distaste. And I was like, well, I'm definitely somewhere in the middle. And I think that's the problem with the movie. There are times where I'm like, this is so clever. I love that. There's jokes. There's things like that just really land. There's times it doesn't. I tried to rewatch it today and wasn't able to because of the kids, but I did watch the first 10 minutes. And the beginning of the movie really struck me as that really emphasizes the who was this for. The opening boy band bit. First of all, that shouldn't be out front because this is about Josie and the Pussycats. That's a separate issue. Yeah. But also, the song is Backdoor Lover, and it's just really leaning to. I mean, you can have jokes like that, but you lean so heavily into it that early in the movie with the sort of obvious gay double entendre there, or maybe not gay, but obvious certain direction of intimacy.
Well, no, basically, it's like I understand where you're coming from. It's like it's kind of like a satirical. It's like kind of something that's a very adult humor, but it's the audience is supposedly these younger kids, and to put a more adult humor, it's kind of incongruous and it doesn't really make sense when you're establishing the tone of the film early on. So it's hard to figure out what's who's this for? What are they trying? Who's the audience that they're trying to pull in? And I even think the fact that Josie the Pussycats, they're a rock band, set kind of it makes me think of No Doubt and Gwen Stefani, which was mid '90s. So by the time Josie and the Pussycats came out, in 2001, that kind of style was already passé, and it was more like Destiny's Child was kind of the hits of 2001, and the whole thing that Alan Cumming they find out that there's subliminal messages. Dujour finds out subliminal messages are on the CD, and he leaves the plane and it crashes. It kind of highlights the disposability of boy bands and NSYNC and Backstreet of the time, that they could be easily replaced. But I just think that all these jokes are interesting, but they the ideas are interesting, but the execution is just not well thought out, and so jokes don't really land in the way they should.
I mean, maybe it's just my twisted sense of humor. I like the jokes, but I mean, yeah, I think the problem with this is this obviously to me seems like a very rushed, very weird show that either could be an IP holder. They made it really quickly so they can keep the IP. Of the Archie comics. Maybe they were trying to profit and create a whole universe, like what you're saying, as a Riverdale thing. I don't know. I think I was older. I was tired of watching Spice World and whatever else crap my sister made me watch, and I finally found one movie that she thought she would love and that I would hate, but it was the exact opposite. But and yeah, I think that there is definitely a mix thing. I think this was kind of made probably for the people who grew up with the animated show, just to be hey, what happens if we make this a lot edgier? And then also have it be really fast paced and bright and colorful for just potential, young teens to also like the movie. I think they were trying to make it be influenced like a Disney movie. They did it poorly, but I think they were trying to make it have adult humor that kids didn't understand, but they liked it anyway. And I think that's what they were probably going for. But I don't think that the directors are probably talented enough to do that. And so the movie looks kind of one of the, a mess. I mean, what else did these? I mean, what the directors are the same people who did, the other movies that you named.
Yeah, and
very good.
Yeah, like I talked about at the very beginning, you have that Can't Hardly Wait style of teen comedy, which was sort of a little bit in this sort of realm, but it was for clearly a certain audience. And the problem is, when you say Josie and the Pussycats, I think like Scooby-Doo cartoon, and this is not that. There's moments that are that, but it's not that overall. But it very much goes into, I think that part of the influence was, this is not too long after American Pie just blew the world up. The R-rated comedy for teens. And so this is a movie that, it was PG-13, right? I think, which is shocking when you think about, whoa, Josie and the Pussycats, PG-13, that rating. And so when you lean...
With Tara Reid at this time, too.
Yeah, like... which is... There's like a joke at the beginning, too, when there's like the montage, when you finally see the band, and it's over their song, and they're having all these things... And she has a sign, and it's like, do you love Pussycats? But you can't see the word cats. That kind of thing. Like, jokes like that were, I had it on the other day when I watched it. I was watching it, my daughter was there, and I wasn't expecting that. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to maybe watch this later. But she's glued to the screen because it's bright. Everything's very bright and fun and colorful in that way. And the songs are... I don't think they're very good, but they're energetic, and for, perspective of a 4-year-old kid, they're probably brilliant and just very... I don't know if
the songs were supposed to be good. I think the songs were supposed to be like very mediocre.
But they're supposed to be like fun. They're supposed to be like fun and up. Yeah, I don't know that the quality, but they're supposed to be like, just like that sort of energy to them, whether it's a really good song or not. That was implicit, and I could see that when Penny was with me and they would play those songs where she would get excited. But then I'm thinking to myself, like, this is definitely not for a small kid at all, if it, like, watching this movie. But at the same time, I show her the cartoon, same thing, she loved it. We were watching it, and we watched several episodes because she was right in it, and I hadn't seen it since I was a kid. I do remember it vaguely, and but it's just a weird thing. Like, and I think Tyler kind of hit it right, where they're probably trying to get the original audience for that show, and then now capture the audience of the day. And they're trying to capture the audience of the day in like 5 different ways. And so what you have is Josie and the Pussycats. And there's a lot of movies that are like that, but this is one of them.
I definitely think I like this movie a little bit more ironic than I do like in quality. I think I like this movie like I love The Room, where it's just like the whole time I'm just like, what is happening? But I think the difference between liking something like Mono's Hands of Fate or like The Room is like, well, there is comedy, and I think there are jokes in this movie that actually do work. And then there's a lot of jokes like the sign that says "honk if you like Pussycats." That joke is so left field. We don't expect it, and it was just like, oh wow, okay, you actually went Archie Comics let you go this way.
But the difference between this movie and like The Room is that you don't have like a madman who has like no self-awareness kind of reigning. Like, you don't have a Tommy Wiseau or like that like crazy kind of personality to kind of rein it in and make people see like how this is, yes, it's a disaster, but it's an entertaining, so bad it's good kind of disaster. Like, you don't have that kind of character. And I mean, I was thinking at the time of like, because all this humor is like non sequiturs. It's like all this like random humor, and it very much the same. It has very much the same tone as like the Austin Power movies, but it doesn't have that comedic voice to kind of rein it in and take you on that journey, that comedic journey. You know what I mean? Because Austin Powers has the same kind of humor. Like, even like Wayne's World has a humor about like, oh hey, here's Coke. Oh, it's product placement. Yeah, you know, they have a joke about that, and this movie has that joke for the entire runtime of the
movie.
Yeah, constantly. And so it's like, it's to the point where it's kind of annoying, and it's not high-minded enough to be like an Andy Kaufman kind of joke where it's like, you know what I mean? So it's just so weird. I'm trying to figure out the audience of this, and I guess it's just Tyler.
The Austin Powers thing is funny, Paul, because I wrote, the humor is like Austin Powers for kids, where you're trying to still appeal to kids. And I don't know what kids exactly means. Maybe it's not 4-year-olds. I shouldn't have had Penny watching this. It's not bad. She's not going to get any of those jokes. But I also wrote, to Tyler's credit, it's bad, but funnier than I thought it would be. It really was funny. And I think that what Paul is getting at is where the humor does come from. It lands in those moments where it is Mike Myers-esque and Austin Powers-y and Wayne's World-y, and those kind of jokes where like maybe like that like wink to the camera type of thing that really work. Like there's one joke that I wasn't sure that landed, but it's sort of that sort of meta reference where I can't remember the girl's name, but the skunk-haired girl, Missy Pyle, I believe, plays her character. She has the skunk hair. You know, she's just with them.
I miss Missy Pyle.
And she's like, I love her. And the question was, why are you here? Someone asked that to her, like, why is she there with them as they get their big record to go on the tour? And she's like, I was in the comic.
Yeah, I love
it. It's just that kind of thing. But I feel like it doesn't work because of maybe the way Paul said. I can't think of examples that like that, but that joke lands, but certain jokes like that don't land because maybe they're just you're too inundated with them, while also having more juvenile humor and then more borderline vulgar humor here. Yes. So you can't mesh those things together. Like when Mike Myers does it, he usually does there's examples where he doesn't balance that line, but early on, Wayne's World,
like most of Goldmember,
but like the first Austin Powers,
you'll get like a really smart, good joke, and then you see a guy like eat his like toenails or something, and you're just like, okay, like in the same scene, it's weird, like,
it lacks the restraint. And at least this movie doesn't go there.
I mean, it's
not his toenail. He eats his skin flake or something, right?
Oh, yeah. Fat bastard.
That's what I was talking about.
Yeah, he's like eating his skin. He's like, it's like gold. Yeah, I remember. But, that absurd sense of humor, it's like you need a comedic voice to kind of hold your hand on that journey and kind of like let you, to help you accept the crazy things that are going on in the movie. And I'll be honest with you, like, the first time I watched it was like, I was miserable. I was like, this is awful. I'll take notes. I'll do it, I guess, whatever. But then I was calling Tyler and I talked to him and he kind of explained some of the movie to me, and I appreciated it a little bit more on my second viewing. Yeah. So I don't know. I just think maybe I'm too hard on this movie. Maybe I'm kind of a snob or something. I don't know.
Oh, sorry. What I was gonna say, like, because like what you were talking about is like, I think that the problem is that we've all watched too many of these shitty teenage 1990 to early 2000 movies that are just trying to basically just like throw their movie at the wall and just hoping it sticks to any demographic whatsoever.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we've seen this too many times, and that's why. Sorry, I was just bouncing off what you were saying. Sorry.
Oh yeah, no, you make a good point, because there's a lot of movies like that around this time period between like 95 and 2005. It's like, let's just throw anything at the wall and see what sticks. Like there's no thought or, there's like the thought to releasing it. No reason behind it. No like kind of creative auteur or whatever to like kind of guide the project. It's just like, hey, let's like just shit this out, like, because it's gonna make money.
Sorry,
go ahead.
I just had a thought. You know what this movie kind of reminds me of, and you're gonna be very upset with me. This seems like a kid Kevin Smith movie.
What?
What do you mean?
Explain. I'm curious what you're.
Well, no. We're talking about like the jokes. How the jokes can be like outright crazy, then kind of just like graphic, or just disgusting and stuff like that. Like look at Clerks 2, where you have them have a whole monologue about Lord of the Rings, and then they get interrupted by Ben Affleck, and then the next shot is them peeing in a cup and giving it to him. And like you have like this brilliant, and like that's Kevin Smith like all the time, where it's like he'll have like something where they talk about something philosophical or something like really, really well written, and then like it follows up with like Jay's asshole or like something really disgusting and weird like that, or getting a blowjob from a dead guy, or giving a dead guy a blowjob or something like that. Like I don't know. I feel like this movie is trying to be relatively, like look at all of Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back. Like that entire movie has like.
I kind of see where you're going. I kind of see where you're going.
Especially Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. Yeah, it's the same.
I kind of see where you're going there.
Was it the same year?
What?
Was it the same year? Just curious. Before Paul,
I think Jay and Silent Bob was 2003. I think.
Yeah, 2000.
Okay, but
it was
right around the same. The same era. Go ahead, Paul, though.
But it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I can see where you're going with that. I think the difference is that with, again, like I said, Kevin Smith is a unique comedic voice that didn't really exist before the 90s, before Clerks, and that's why
same year, by the way.
Okay, I was right. I thought
so. 2001, both of them.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah. So like I said, Kevin Smith was like that kind of comedic voice to kind of rein it in, and like the characters in Jane Silent Bob and those movies kind of, I think, resonate better than Josie and the Pussycats.
I don't know. I rewatched all Kevin Smith's filmography during this quarantine, and
no.
Oh boy, some of them do not hold up. Some of them absolutely do not hold up as much as But I think when we watched it, we were teenagers, and it was so edgy. Where like
honestly, it's been such a long time since I've seen them.
We can tell our friends like, yeah, I watched Kevin Smith movie, and like your friends are like, yo, that's awesome, and then you go, yo, I watched that Josie and the Pussycats movie. They'd be like, oh, we're not hanging out with you anymore. Get out of my house. So I think it's also.
So like,
what made more money, this or Jane Silent Bob Strike Back? Probably both didn't do very well.
I was gonna say, I don't know if either one of them.
So real quick, I think that you're onto something though with the idea, and like, because I said I feel like it's American Pie for kids, so Austin Powers for kids, and I think every time you reference one of those movies, you're right, because it's trying to grab at what worked in so many other movies that it doesn't. And it doesn't pick one movie to copy and do it well. It picks 10 movies to copy, throw in this brand that people know. Josie and the Pussycats, I remember that cartoon. I remember that comic. You know, me, I would have remembered 10 years prior reading it in that Archie comic on that check stand. And here I am now. Oh, there's a movie about that. Maybe I'll go see that. I didn't watch it until 20 years later.
The $5. The IP is in the $5 bin at Walmart. I'll take it.
Exactly.
Honestly, I think it would have worked better if like Josie and the Pussycats kind of leaned heavy into the 70s, like kind of made like an Austin Powers kind of send up, but with the 70s, like kind of really lean heavy into that. And I was gonna say I like your idea. I actually like would love to see that. That's all I was trying to say. Like that would be amazing, and actually have like the cat kind of come in like at the end of the movie where you're just like, oh, it's the cat from the animated show. Exactly. And it's like, like it laughs and everything. It totally should have done that. And the interesting thing for me is that Rosario Dawson is a great actress. In this movie, she's just kind of starting out, and I wish that she was Josie. Like if she was the lead, this movie would be so much stronger, and I think would have worked because, she's demonstrated later, like in like Daredevil and Alexander and like so many different movies, that she's a good leading actress, and she could really like, draw in an audience that she's a good lead. So it kind of bums me out that this movie could have largely been fixed if you made Rosario Dawson Josie and made her the lead, and it would have fixed a lot of problems there, and elevated this movie, I think.
I love Rosario Dawson. I think she just has this energy, and I don't want to say typecast, but I think she has this energy where she has to play like the smart badass, and Josie is not that at all. And I think the character she did play is the more. I mean, she's the only one that made any sense from any of them, and the only one that wasn't duped by anybody. And I kind of like that. I don't know if Rosario Dawson would have been good for Josie. She's just like the most like generic, like the most generic protagonist ever. Where I think Rosario Dawson maybe deserves, even in one of her first roles, she still deserves a little better than that. So I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
And see, that's the interesting thing is that Josie and the Pussycats, the property itself, is not something that's like people had so much of an attachment for that they really kind of could be more flexible with the characterization and not piss off the fans, because it's Josie the Pussycats is kind of more obscure than like Scooby-Doo or any of those other things. So they should really like be more flexible in the characterization and like make, try to improve the movie itself with this property. But
that's totally true. But you're running into the wall of, in retrospect, casting, and the problem with that that Rachel Lee Cook. She is kind of the most bland star of that era. No offense to her. She's not like a bad actress, but she's just not a special actress. and she was the big star. She was the thing that she had done. She's All That, which propelled her pretty big. So she was the name
Tom
going into this movie. Like, what was that?
Tommy Huck.
And I think that's part of the problem with, and that's the way casting works. But Rosario Dawson, I felt the same way, that she is. I still wanted her in that role, but I felt like it was such a weird dynamic that the joke with her character was that they kept forgetting her name. And she's obviously the most magnetic of them. She's the most dynamic of them. Maybe that's what they were going for with the joke, but they would never remember her name, and she wouldn't get invited to the parties and all that stuff. And then Tara Reid's character is Melody was just too stupid to care, which is her unfortunate typecasting as well, whether she fits that role or not.
I mean, let's just call Tara Reid's character what she is. She's just Silent Bob. That's all she is in this movie. She's just Silent Bob, where she just plays dumb and just kind of goes with it, and then at the end she has like the smartest thing in the and then it's over. Yay, cliches.
Yeah.
I do. Can I say, like, I want to give props. I think that the two people that did the best in this movie, and I think they are honestly the reason why I love this movie. I love Parker Posey, and I absolutely love Alan Cumming in this movie. I think he had an absolute blast. I think this role was better for him than Nightcrawler was. Like, I think he was funny. No, I'm not saying that like Nightcrawler is a worse character. I just mean like his acting in this movie. I feel like, I don't know. Like, I feel like he had a lot of fun with it, and I enjoyed watching him in this performance more than I did Nightcrawler. Does that make any sense? Like, I'm not.
It doesn't make any sense to me.
Really?
It makes no sense to me.
Yeah, my brain is misfire right now. But
with the caveat, he was my favorite thing in this movie. But I love him as Nightcrawler, so it's sort of my parallel. But he was my favorite thing in this movie.
Fine,
so I'm making fun of your
the
extreme you're taking it to, but I understand the root of it.
I just love his physical humor in this movie. Like, every time he pulls out a phone, like, it's like the biggest thing when he pulls out his phone, and he's just and I don't know why, like. It's just his mannerisms, his body language, and like his physical comedy is so good in this movie. I love it, and I love every single scene he's in, every single facial expression when somebody's talking to him. Like, he's just looking at every single character like they're the dumbest thing on this entire earth, and he's just like he just doesn't care, which is like the most dead eyes ever. And then whenever anything goes awry or somebody questions anything, he just kind of like panics and just pulls and then whips out the phone real quick. I don't know. I think he's just I think funny and has really embodied the character really well.
Yeah, and he and Parker Posey, they kind of both played it the way I thought the whole movie should have been, where it's sort of a live action cartoon. Very absurd and quirky and goofy. I felt they played it that way, but they were the only two people in the movie who really did. And I think you would have, like, for example, Rosario Dawson's very good, and her character's kind of the character just that grounds things. That's the way she's built into the story, so that worked. And you could keep her as she is, but you need more other characters to be cartoony in the right ways. And they're the only two that kind of got it right.
Yeah. I do agree with you. Like, both of them kind of got the tone of the film, and like, because it's in a way their performances are better, but it's because they got the tone of the film and the other actors didn't, So I don't know. I feel bad. Like, I feel like I'm shitting on your childhood, Tyler. But
I don't care.
Oh, okay.
No, this wasn't my childhood. I was like 12 years old when this came out.
Oh,
so.
I don't know. You had like, this brought my sister and I together and all that stuff.
Oh God, no, I don't care about that.
And then I'm like shitting all over it. So I feel kind of bad, but I don't know.
No, she would pick movies that I would hate on purpose, and it's just so it's kind of backfired on her.
Adversarial relationship. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. It's like, it's not for me. I'm not the target audience.
Are you sure?
I'm just not the target audience.
I don't know.
I
we know who it's not for. It's not for Paul.
Okay, so one thing I want to talk about, and I actually was talking to Paul about, like, one of my favorite things about this movie is also, like, the thing is that they didn't say in the movie, which I would have loved too. So all the product placement in the movie was not authorized. They just did it for the laughs. Not one company.
No way.
Paid them to put their products in this movie.
Are you serious? Like
You mean
Starbucks
McDonald's
and
didn't
Coke
want a
and-
McDonald's shower curtain? Target didn't want the Target plane? I can't remember anymore, but those
From
two
what
stand out.
There's a couple articles out there, but Pepsi was fucking furious. And the producers got sued by a couple of the companies, but since everything was done in Canada and there's like I guess different rules and stuff like that, and it was clearly a parody, nothing happened. Everything was thrown out. But no, this movie caused a huge stir. None of the product placement in this movie were legit.
Wow.
Like
That's
that was
insane.
the ongoing joke. So and that's why the whole that to me that's why I think it's the most fun. It's the funniest thing in the world too. And I also learned this later, even though I already loved the movie. It made me love this movie even more so. And that's what I love about the movie is that the whole movie is about subliminal messages. There's so many subliminal messages in this music and in the movie. Every single shot. Like, anybody want Pepsi? Pepsi. It's just like.
And I can
Pepsi
see though
signs
that it's kind of an the one message this movie might have is sort of anti-commercialism, anti-advertising, and how we're inundated with it, overwhelmed with it. And I can see how then it would be tricky to get those actual companies to be on board. But wait, you're saying we're bombarding people with our ads. That's really what they're saying. So I can see how let's sneak around this and find a way to make it happen on the down low, but not so down low.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny though that you're like, that story behind it is far more interesting than the actual movie itself. Like, that's what it's so bizarre to me. Oh Jesus.
Yeah. No, and I think like one of my other favorite things in this movie is like when they would get like cameos and stuff like that, like they would get the most Canadian cameos in this movie. That like, and I know that this was definitely targeted towards, you know, America because it was like an American studio and stuff like that. And Josie and the Pussycats and Riverdale are very American. And I just think like the funniest thing in this movie was like the biggest celebrity cameo besides Carson Daly was Eugene Levy, who wasn't like, I mean, besides American Pie and like Best in Show and This Is Spinal Tap, wasn't really that big. I just love the fact that like, they got the most Canadian actor to be like the big cameo.
But I think that was them like American Pie.
I loved it.
That was the hey, you liked American Pie, like this movie, please like this movie. That guy's in this movie too.
I think they were like, hey, are you in town right now? Like, can you come by the set?
You know what's funny? You mentioned Eugene Levy is that I actually knew him from SCTV. Back in like the early or late 70s, right around the same time, like Saturday Night, like, because I would watch SCTV late after Saturday Night Live, and so that's how I know Eugene Levy and John Candy, and Rick Moranis, Harold Ramis. That's like my part of my comedic education, and so like when he showed up, I was like really delighted to have Eugene Levy because it's something that is very obscure, and I think. And you wouldn't really appreciate it unless you're like a fan of comedy. So when he showed up,
Paul and everyone in Canada appreciated that. Paul and all Canadians are appreciated.
I think I was the only American that appreciated that. And honestly, if I transported myself, if I transported myself to 2001, I think if I had seen this movie in the theater in 2001, I think I would have been miserable. But that one moment would be the shining light of the movie, and I would give it a pass because of Eugene Levy showing up.
I love how self-aware and meta the movie was. And like, again, I don't want to give credit to the writers and the directors because I'm sorry to say this, they're fucking terrible. And the only thing they're working on right now is Liza Koshy's YouTube show. So who gives a shit? And like, yeah, like it's not on them. This is a beautiful accident. That's all this is. Like no credit to them. I think I love it so much because one thing I actually think the actors did a great job in this movie. All of them, like I think they were all like solid for the horrible material they were given. Like Jennifer Jason Leigh, like what you said, she's not like a spectacular. She's not like a
you
Jennifer
mean Rachel
Lawrence.
Lee Cook, right?
Rachel Lee Cook. What did I say?
Jennifer Jason Leigh.
They're all
the same. All of a sudden, I was
three...
wait, it's a different actress. I hate this movie. I was
Jennifer
wrong.
Love Hewitt? No, just kidding. No. Sarah Michelle Gellar. What was with like around this time with every not even them, like every actor wanted like three names, like everybody. Like you had
every actor and presidential assassin wants three names, right?
Oh yeah,
That's so weird around this time.
It's funny that you mentioned that because Rachel Leigh Cook and Jennifer Jason Leigh, like I always confuse their names, and I had to I had to IMDb which one was which because I was like, I don't want to reference the Hateful Eight woman when I'm really meaning the She's All That woman. Like they're very different.
No, if Tyler hadn't said it, I probably wouldn't have.
Different. They're the most different actors too, which is really scary.
And that's the thing. They're so different, but their names, because of their names, it's just the wires cross. I get it. I'm not. I just caught him. Like, wait a minute. And for a second, I was like, wait, do I have the right name?
Yeah. So my childhood crush from Tom and Huck. I think she's not the most spectacular actor. Like, like I said, she's not Jennifer Lawrence. She's not like Cate Blanchett or like, or Meryl Streep. But she's fine as like the kind of like just like the boring protagonist. I think she does.
She's
fine.
not a bad actor. She's fine as the boring protagonist. And it's true. I agree with you. It's funny though. It's a funny way to phrase it. But she's just like this. Like I'm a cute, likable girl that isn't dynamic, but isn't bad. And I think why it works, why she works as an actress in a lot of those movies is she feels very real. Feels like someone you would know, and she's not. She's very pretty and all that, but she's not like unapproachably so.
Yeah.
By the way, that boyfriend, is that the Napoleon Dynamite kid? The boyfriend?
No. No. No.
Oh, okay.
No. Oh, that's funny though. That's so funny though. No, I could have sworn James Heater, Josh Heater.
Oh yeah, I could have sworn he was.
No, he's in Batwoman now.
Oh, okay. I could have sworn he looks exactly like that Napoleon Dynamite kid. So like I was like so confused. I was like, is that him? And he kind of broke out around the same time, right? Isn't it when Napoleon Dynamite, like 2000?
No, Napoleon Dynamite came out my high school. It was like 2006, I would say.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Napoleon Dynamite is a bit later, I feel like.
2004. Wow, 2004.
If Napoleon Dynamite had come out before this movie would have also tried to be like that. So we should be glad it didn't, because it would have had like a weird dance on a stage or something. I don't know.
And then
which would have been great in this movie, actually.
Oh yeah.
You know what? Okay, you know what the most important thing about this movie is that we forgot? Remember that one movie that we talked about last season, Dragon Ball Evolution? Did you know that this is Justin Chatwin's film debut?
I was going to point that out. Fuck, you got it. I was going to point that out.
You know what the funny thing is?
The first 2 minutes.
Yeah, the funny thing is, I didn't notice it the first time I watched it, and I only got to watch it once just because of time. And I tried to watch it again today as we're recording this, and I only watched maybe the first 10 minutes. And I happened, and I was watching it like while chasing around the kids and stuff, and I saw that. I'm like, oh my gosh, we just connected this to a far worse movie. So
yes.
You know, it's funny when I watched the movie the first time, I was like, oh, this fucker again. Jesus.
And it's funny, the first time I watched it, I remember seeing that character that he played, but it didn't register who it was until I saw it again. I think I was suppressing the Dragon Ball Z memories as we ended our season on such a depressing note of bad adaptation. So this, by comparison, is like a brilliant adaptation, and it's not a great adaptation by any means.
Yeah. I want to go back. I want to go back to what we were saying earlier. One thing I think would have fixed this movie, honestly, is if maybe they didn't focus so much on the party aspect and them fighting, and they actually just turned it into a mystery comedy. I actually think if they actually like really leaned towards like, whoa, there's subliminal messages, where could it possibly be? And like actually like leaned into the campiness and like actually had it be even more self-aware, where you, the audience, already know, but they're like slowly figuring it out on accident. Like that would have been funny. That's kind of how the Scooby-Doo movie was, where everybody was so stupid that they accidentally found what happened, except for Velma. I think she was the only one aware. But like that was like the joke of the Scooby-Doo movies, where they made everybody like really dumb.
Or even the tone of like, just hop on what you're saying, Tyler. The tone of like the Brady Bunch movies that came out a few years before that. They weren't great, but they had that. The tone was somehow right, where they were just so unaware of the world around them that it was kind of funny, and that something like that would have totally worked in this movie as well. You know what, Tyler? You nailed it. That's exactly what should have been done. And that would have been true to like the source material, the old Hanna-Barbera cartoon. You nailed it right there. You fixed Josie and the Pussycats. You know how funny it would have been, like Tara Reid's character like picks up a magazine and just has a picture of somebody else, and she's just like, oh,
hey, what if it's Alan Cumming? And like it's just like something so like stupid, unexplainable, nothing were to happen, and then they just get closer and closer, just no clues. I don't know. To me, that would have been so funny and self-aware. I mean, that would have kept following the film's tone of being meta, and also, but
and like leaning in one direction. I think that was a big issue where there was the crude humor, there was the meta humor, there was the juvenile humor, there was humor for a 4-year-old. There was like it was all over the place in that regard. So that would have leveled it out. And this is what we're going for in tone, and you already have a better movie because it's not. It's not an unwatchable movie. It's just not a good movie. So. Oh,
absolutely! Like as much as I shit on this movie, it's like Citizen Kane compared to Dragon Ball Evolution. Like, to be honest, this is the problem is it's not. Anyway, go ahead, Tyler.
No, I was gonna say I will say this. Even though I love this movie, there is one scene I've always hated in this movie, and I think it's because it could have been done so well, and I actually like this actor, and I loved him in the sketch comedy he was in. I really hate the Carson Daly, Aries Spears fighting them.
I hated that too so much. Yes,
that scene. Like, I honestly think if you dive into and you broke down every single scene, they all work. They all have a purpose. There's always at least one good joke in a scene. If it's a throwaway line like Missy Piles, it's like, I'm becoming the comic. Like, there's always something so self-aware and really, really stupid. Like, also, like, the glass joke I thought was, like, fucking brilliant. But
yeah, that was good.
That was the one scene that literally made me cringe all the time, and I always skipped it. I remember skipping it, too, whenever I would watch it. And I hated that scene then. I hate it now. Aries Spears is a very talented sketch comedian. And he didn't need to do any of those impressions. They didn't add anything.
Yeah, that like, Bill Cosby impression.
That
hasn't aged well.
That was not timely.
Yeah, definitely when you're chasing a girl with a bat, very unfortunate in retrospect.
Yeah.
You couldn't know that
Unfortunately,
then. Or at least we didn't know that then. Yeah, I thought the same thing. I wrote in my notes that I hate the Impressionist Murderer TRL segment. I couldn't believe, and again, it's like a tone shift where it was like now we're in a dark comedy, like a very dark comedy. Like it just didn't fit. It wasn't funny in a funny person that I'd seen him on Mad TV. Like you said, what's his name? Aries Spears. Yeah, okay. And I think you mentioned earlier, but he was great on Mad TV, and his impressions were really good. But here, it's like, wow, this is not good.
Yeah,
and maybe it's just the nature of the way he was forced to do it, and
the scene should have just been Carson Daly like interviewing them, and then finally, after like a couple minutes, Rosario Dawson's character realizes that everybody in the audience are made out of cardboard, and that would have been fun. That would have been
funnier. And he just continues with it. And
exactly. Yeah. You have to set the joke up, and then you have payoff. And
she's like, "Why is Brad Pitt here? Wait, that's not Brad Pitt."
Yeah, and then there's like a sniper in the rafters, and a red dot.
Well, I was thinking that the floor would just like open up, and then there'll be like maybe a little bit too Austin Powers-y, but like have like piranhas, and they're just like, all right. It's like, all right, for the next part of the interview, jump into this piranha pit or something like that. And they'll just be like, wait, why? And then like it's just them talking and being stupid. Something like that could have been a lot funnier.
No, that would have been better. It's just, I what you said, Tyler, I think on a very basic level, every scene, it's not great, but it works within the context of what they were trying to do. That's the one part that doesn't even make sense with what they were trying to do. It doesn't even, it feels like it's just they saw some movie that had something like that and put it in this movie. It just didn't fit.
Actually, you know what the most hilarious thing for me was remember when they're on the plane, the Motorola plane, and they're all saying like, "Oh my gosh, we're like, we're famous now, and like, here's our Muni Pass." If you look behind him, you could see a cloud, and it's the same cloud throughout the whole airplane ride. It's like so obviously a set, and that just cracked me the fuck up.
That's amazing.
And that's the good cartoony stuff. That's fun. That's the fun.
Yeah, I like that.
Go ahead, Tyler.
We need to end soon. But one of my favorite other thing about this movie is that you have the creators of Robot Chicken in it too, and you have Seth Green, Breckin Meyer, and like everybody. Yeah, Donald Faison was like my favorite part. Who's now going to be Professor Utonium in the Powerpuff Girls reboot for some reason, and that's
Wait,
some
what?
strange casting.
I didn't realize he was cast in it. I know I read that Chloe Bennett was in it, but that's
Yeah.
Oh wow.
We'll talk about it after the recording, but so I love seeing them, and I actually thought that they were pretty funny. And I love it when they come back so much.
Yeah, when you're saying that when they come back, where it's clearly they didn't actually come back, they could only get them for that one day. That's all they had. They couldn't get those guys to come back for the shooting the other part, other than the leader of the band, whoever that guy is the only one you see his face. Yeah, they understood. They're like, please do 2 days.
Funny.
They're like, no, I'm just doing one. Like, okay, we're gonna be wrapped in bandages.
Well, yeah, no, I think it's funny how even the monkey was wrapped in bandages. Like, that was kind of funny.
Yes.
Dr. Zaius, another nice joke.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Zaius.
Yeah, Dr. Zaius.
Again, the only reason I noticed that was because I got to rewatch the first 10 minutes. So any final thoughts on this movie? I don't want to say good movie, bad movie. It's a movie.
I like how you paused and you're like, movie.
I was going to add a qualifier, but it's just a movie.
I mean, I love this movie ironically and also unironically. It makes me sad because I think it could have been a lot funnier and actually stood the test of time. I think it actually could have been a phenomenal comedy, like maybe along the lines of on the same year as Not Another Teen Movie, and where it would have been really like a huge spoof on Hanna-Barbera cartoon characters with Hanna-Barbera characters. I think it could have potentially been better than Scooby-Doo. I actually like it more than both of the Scooby-Doo movies, the live-action ones. I actually think that this one's funnier, and like probably because of the more adult humor. But yeah, I mean, I like this movie, and I also recognize that it's also crap. It's the same thing. Like, I guess it's it's a guilty pleasure, I guess. So, yeah.
I don't recommend this movie. I don't. It's fine. The problem with this movie is like I enjoy it more when it's explained to me why it's funny.
I don't recommend this movie, but I recommend listening to this podcast.
Yeah,
about this
it's
movie.
like
I just imagine like you really wanting to love a comedian, so you invite him over so he can explain all of his whole set to you.
Like, I don't like your comedy. I don't like your comedy, but I like you.
Yeah. So, all right. So I walk out on stage, and I.
Yeah, it's like is the movie really successful if I have to be explained why it's funny? You know what I mean? And again, it's like if you enjoy the movie, here's the thing. It's like if you enjoy the movie, that's cool. Like everybody has different musical tastes. Again, this movie's just not for me. I don't really like it. And I actually wanted to do something, kind of a callback to one of our early episodes. I wanted to kind of bring this back up, but so the word juxtapozuki, right? And so I want to say that's like my recommendation. Like if it gets a juxtapozuki, then it gets a recommendation. So this movie does not get a juxtapozuki, so no juxtapozuki for this movie.
No juxtapozuki.
There you go.
For me, all I have to say was, to Tyler's credit, I didn't hate it. I would say I enjoyed watching it, but I never need to and probably never will watch it again.
Yeah,
I'll say this.
I think
I'll say this: like recording and talking about this movie was more entertaining than the actual movie itself. So there you go.
Well, you're welcome.
Yeah,
Tyler and I say you're welcome, Paul. That's us. That's us.
Oh, good. I can't wait to do The Last Airbender then eventually because anything to put a bandage over that scar that movie left on me.
I have a good story for that one, so we should do it.
Oh man. Thank you so much for watching, you guys. But before we go, Josiah, where can they find you?
You can find me on YouTube mainly and Instagram as well. But Josiah is Write, WRITE, as in writer. And before I forget, we're still doing our T-shirt giveaway. So be sure to follow and subscribe rather to my channel and subscribe here on the Grand Geek Gathering to be entered into our T-shirt contest. Subscriber from across, as long as you subscribe to both, you'll be entered in the contest, and you could win a Josiah's Right t-shirt, or a Gathering t-shirt, or a Popmosis t-shirt, or a Pazuki t-shirt. We'll see, but you could win one by just subscribing. So do that.
All right, Paul.
Oh, I'm gonna be eating McDonald's and maybe going to the Virgin Megastore and buying some CDs. And you can find me also on Instagram, Arcade Blackfire.
Alrighty. And you can find us and find more about me on thegrandgeekgathering.com, where we have our articles, our other videos, podcasts, and so much more. I also stream on Twitch at twitch.tv at /The Grand Geek Gathering. And you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and we have our own Discord as well. Our music has been provided by Carlisle Laurent. Have a wonderful week. Wear a mask, and GGG.
What's on the silver screen? They you wouldn't believe.